Hi ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to ITSnippets. Recently, the Windows 10 October 2020 update has just been released. So I thought I'd show you how to slipstream that from start to finish. So let's get started. In order to do this, we can go to www.microsoft.com/en-gb/software-download/Windows 10. It's called the Windows Media Creation Toolkit. You can literally just Google Media Creation Toolkit for Windows 10 and it will take you to this page. Once in this page, you've got two options. You've got Update Now, which will update the current system. That's not what we're interested in. And you can have Download the Create Windows 10 Media tool. So we'll download the tool just now by clicking on that. And we can click on Save. And as you can see, it's actually called Media Creation Tool 20H2. So that's 2020 half 2. So the second update of 2020. Windows 10 is updated bi-yearly. So once that's been run, we double click it. Once that's been downloaded, we double click it to run and then say yes when user account control kicks in. And it'll say it's getting some things ready. Okay, it gives you a licensing agreement, so a lot of legal bump. Read at your leisure, but I'm just going to accept. Okay, so it gives me two options. So upgrade this PC, so meaning you can also use it instead of this option here. Or to create installation media for USB flash drive, DVD, ISO, or for another PC. Okay, so we're going to use that, so we click Create Installation Media and click Next. It's going to ask us which version we want. Now I'm just duplicating the version that's on this machine. However, you can untick this box here and select whether you want the 32-bit architecture, the 64-bit architecture, and you can select the language that you want it in. Obviously I'm in the UK, so I'm okay with that. And then I'm going to click Next. I want to create an ISO file. You can do this via USB as well. It's not a problem. I may do that in a separate tutorial, but for this one, I'm going to use an ISO file. Click Next. It's going to ask me where I want to save it. So I will just save it onto the root of my D drive. I already have a version there, so I'm going to click Yes. Now, depending on the speed of your internet, this can take some time as it's downloading approximately 8 GB of data. Okay, so that's taken 1 hour and 7 minutes on my 300 meg line to download. Yeah, I think Microsoft servers are a little on the slow side at the moment. Anyway, as you can see, it's been downloaded to decon/Windows ISO. So we can click Finish on that and it'll do some cleanup, and that's it cleaned up. That's how you get the latest version of Windows 10 downloaded to your machine. The first thing we need to do is head over to www.NTLite.com. That's NTLite.com. And when you're at the main page, go to Downloads. Download the latest version depending on your operating system. So that's either 64-bit or 32. I'm running 64-bit, so I'm going 64-bit. I'm going to click Save. I'm just saving this to my default downloads folder, which is what most people will likely do. Makes it easier for cleaning up afterwards. Okay, double click it to install it once it's finished downloading. User account control will kick in and ask you if you want to continue. With the prompt, do you want to allow this application to make changes to your device? So we select yes. It comes up with a licensing agreement. Feel free to read that at your leisure. Click Next. Create desktop shortcut. Yeah. Portable mode means you don't actually have to install it. That's good because you can install it to a USB drive, but that's not what we're going to do today because I use this program regular enough to have it installed. So click Next. And wait for install to finish. Once it's finished, you can click Next to launch NTLite. Now I'm not going to launch NTLite just now, because there's some things that we have to do in prep for creating our ISO. So we'll click Finish, and that's how you download and install NTLite. First thing you have to do, you can right click your taskbar and go to Run PowerShell, Windows PowerShell as admin. User account control will kick in and ask for permissions. Do you wish to allow this app to make changes to the device? So select Yes. Once that comes up, and clear the screen using CLS, and then you would type export Windows driver space dash online, so in other words the ones that are actually in use, dash destination, and then in my case I'm going to go d:/ new dash drivers, and hit return. That should hopefully think for a moment and then start backing up my drivers. There we go, that was nice and easy, wasn't it? So while the program that you've previously seen me download NTLite can do this, it's always nice to have a backup just in case. So for this we're going to use WH Downloader, which used to be called Windows Hotfix Downloader. And you can get that from Major Geeks, www.majorgeeks.com/files/details/windows_hotfix_downloader.html. Once there, click the download now link and wait for it to download. There we go. Once it's downloaded, oh, it wouldn't let me double click it, so I can close that just now. Once it's been downloaded, it will download to a folder or something similar to this, or rather a zip file. You have to right click and extract all. Just put it in a folder the same name, so extract's fine. And there we go, that's it been extracted, so we can close that window and we just double click in whdownloader.exe. User account control should kick in, so click yes when it does. There we go. Up here we click on download the latest lists and give it a moment. We're using Windows 10 x64, so we'll click that. As you can see, there's 24 general upgrades for this, including .NET and some hotfixes, so you can right click and select all, and then click download. As you can see, it's created a folder called updated lists and updates, or rather updates list. So presumably it's downloading them. There we go. Yeah, it's downloading the updates into that folder that it just created. As you can see here, it's 2 of 24 updates, but a total of 3.24 gigabyte. That's pretty big. That might take some time. Okay, so that's actually completed now. So if we go back into our updates folder, into Windows 10 General, not sure why it splits these in here into different numbers. I don't actually know. Let's look at the information, see if it tells us. Okay, so the numbers of the different Windows versions, which is interesting. I guess that will depend on which version of Windows it's detected in the system, because it's not actually been given a version to look at. That's fair enough. So let's just close that just now, and there we go. This will be the folder that we will add to our Windows 10 Slipstream disk. So let's move on to the next part. The website that I actually use for this creates its own self-installer, and it's called NTLite. That's www.ninite.com. It's a strange website. I actually found it by accident, but once you go here, you see this page in front of you. And what you actually do is you click next to a little tick box next to what you actually want to download. So Opera, for example, I always have Opera installed on my machines, but you can see you've got Chrome, Opera, Firefox for browsers, and because it's split by category, it's nice and easy to work out. Under utilities, I don't use TeamViewer, ImageBurn, BullVNC, Terracopy, I don't use any of them. Under messaging, Zoom, that never used to be on there. I do use Discord, so I can add that. I don't use Skype, Pigeon, Thunderbird, or Trillian. Under media, I don't use iTunes, but I do use VLC rather. Yep, Foobar is actually quite good. I've started using recently. It's a bit lightweight, a bit basic, but it's very good for what it does. I didn't even know Winamp was still a thing. Wow. Music Bee, Audacity. I like having Audacity installed. KLite Codecs, that's additional codecs for playing media. That's sometimes nice to install. I'm not going to do it in this particular occasion though. I don't know what GOM is. Spotify CCCP. No idea what that is. Media Monkey, I believe, is for organising your music and renaming it. I don't use that. And while I do use Handbrake, I don't use it in all of my systems. So under runtimes, you've got your Java, your .NET, Silverlight, and Air. Imaging, you've got Krita, never heard of it. Blender, I don't use normal machines. Paint.NET, GIMP. GIMP's actually good if you're a content creator. I don't really use any of them, but again, that's personal preference. Back to your documents, this is like your Office apps. I don't use any of them. Developer tools, I do use Notepad++. Your Java development kits. I used to use Putty, but that's now built into PowerShell, so I don't actually use that anymore. Eclipse, Visual Studio Code, that could be a useful one again for developers. Security Essential, Malwarebytes. So Malwarebytes is maybe a good one to have. I won't install it just now, I'll install that separately because not all of my boxes actually do day-to-day tasks that would require malware actually running on them. Most of them aren't actually internet connected. Avast, AVG, Spybot. Again, this is personal preference. Everybody's got each to their own for these. File sharing, QBitTorrent. Interesting, that's only one they've got under there, but not one I'm intending on installing. Evernote, Google Earth, Steam. It's possibly worth installing Steam on there. KeePass, if you get multiple passwords, that might be something I'm looking at in the future. At the moment, online storage, you get Dropbox, Google Backup and Sync, OneDrive. OneDrive's pretty much part of the course anymore. SugarSync. For compression, I usually use 7-zip. pzip I've never heard of, and occasionally WinRAR. Now WinRAR is obviously shareware, so I'm not installing that just now. So I've selected the applications that I want, and I click Get Your NTLite. I presume is how it's pronounced. As you see, it gives me a 9.8 Audacity Discord Notepad installer. So I click Save. And as if I've got the folder, you can see that's already there. And that will now, if I double click it, install all those applications. I'm not going to do that just now. You can see me do that in a later part of this tutorial when I enable audit mode in Windows 10. So for now, that's this tutorial finished. Okay, so we've got our drivers extracted. We've got our hotfixes downloaded. We've got additional applications downloaded if we want to add them later on. So now let's start putting these all together. So the first thing we need to do is we actually need to go to our D drive, or in my case it's a D drive, and yours it will be slightly different. And we'll need to create a folder to extract our Windows disk to, so that we can use it with NTLite. So this can be anywhere on your C drive, your D drive, as long as you put permissions to write to it. Even a network drive, although I wouldn't recommend it on a network drive, so it'll slow it down. Just right click, go new folder, and just put Slipstream. Call it something like Slipstream. Okay. Then what you do is, if you go to your Windows ISO that you downloaded previously, you go right click and mount. You'll see it'll appear as your, well, in my case it's a G drive, yours it may be the D or E. Select all, right click and copy. Go back to the folder that you created, in my case it was d:/Slipstream, and paste that in there. This is just making a copy that is obviously not locked down in an ISO, and we can edit it in order to actually add the additional things that we want into it. Okay, now that that's been extracted, we want to make sure to right click and go to properties and make sure that read only isn't ticked. That's fine, so we can click OK, and that's our folder now extracted, so we can then continue using NTLite and start slipstreaming all of our updates into it. Go to your start bar, type NTLite, and then click on the application. If user account control kicks in like it just has for me, click yes. And NTLite will open. Let's just go full screen for this. As you can see, I've used mine plenty of times before. But what we want to do is we want to click add, and we want to click an image directory. And then we want to point that to our Slipstream folder that we created in the previous step. So this is basically the contents of your extracted Windows ISO that you created with the Media Creation Toolkit. So click on select folder, and as you see, it gives me a list of all of the operating systems that are on this disk. In my case, it's Windows 10 Pro that I'm wanting. So I double click that, and it will say, do you wish to convert the image to a standard WIM format? And the current image will be replaced after conversion, back up manually before this operation. So that's also one of the reasons I had you extract it to a folder called Slipstream in the previous tutorial. So click yes, or click OK rather, and this will take a moment. The speed of this depends entirely on the speed of your machine. Okay, that's says complete. I'm not really interested in showing me that in the future, it's just another thing to slow me down, so I'm just going to click Do Not Show in the Future and click OK. Now it's going to do the next step, which I believe is to extract it. Okay, so finally that's completed its process. Let's just see how long that took. It took around 13 minutes. Again, that'll depend on the speed of your system and the speed of the drive you're writing to. So, inside remove, you can actually remove some components in here. I generally don't touch this because this is where I've seen things broken with Windows installs. So I would try and get my image working correctly, the way that I want it to, with all the drivers and everything in it, and then I would maybe choose to come in here and like take out some of the apps and stuff like that. Inside features again, same issue. You can remove things, you can add things, you can delete things. I generally just leave it as it is. However, for example, if you know you were going to set this up on a machine that needed Hyper-V, you can turn on Hyper-V, or if you needed IIS hosting, you can do that. What you choose to add here or not is entirely up to you, but everything in here can be added using the Add Roles icon under the control panel. Settings again, you can change what you want in here. Interesting that it says privacy, because like there's no privacy with Windows 10. You can change how your start menu looks, most areas apps. I'm not going to sit and go through these just now, that's maybe for another tutorial. The real ones that we're wanting to look at are actually all the way down here. Updates. Okay, so in order to slipstream our updates, we click Add, and we click Directory containing packages. And we then go to our, well, it's actually an older version of Windows Hotfix downloader that I had. So if we go to our Downloads folder, in our Windows Hotfix folder, then Updates, Windows 10, 64, General, and just select that and it should add all those 4 folders. Now some of these are possibly already integrated into the version of Windows I actually have, the image that we downloaded earlier on. So if that's the case, it should come up with some errors and conflicts. There we go, there's a couple of them. It's not actually that bad, it's not something that we really need to worry about, to be honest. So we just click OK when that comes up. And that's pretty much all of those. Now what we can also do, if we wanted to, is we can add latest online updates as well, which is built in. And it gives us an Intel microcode update. I'm not quite sure what that one does. And an Adobe Flash update. I don't actually want to install these just now, but again, you could just place a tick next to them and click download. It does say .NET Framework 3.5. Cumulative update, I'm not sure why that's missing. And a servicing stack update, so I'm quite happy to click download on these. And download's now a premium feature, so we'll click OK and we can just click in queue. That just means we'll get an extra pop-up later on. Although it's now telling me, ironically, that they're already there, so I think we can ignore them safely. But if you didn't use Windows Hotfix Downloader, that's how you would actually install updates separately. So let's go to drivers. If you remember, it's the same process. Remember, we stored them on our D drive under our folder called new drivers. So just do that again. Click Add, click Directory containing drivers, select new drivers, click Select Folder. Again, there might be some runoff, so we might get a duplicate, and a duplicate might cause an error. There was only one of them. It thinks it's the wrong architecture, which is interesting. So click OK. And as you see here, it seems to think that there's missing drivers here. I'm not quite sure what these are, to be honest. But I'm not worried about them just now. Again, that's something we can pick up at a later date if we need to. Generally, the first time you do one of these, there's always going to be something that doesn't quite work correctly and you have to tweak afterwards. That's unfortunately the nature of the beast with Windows and the amount of various configurations that you end up having to support. So with that done, we can go to registry. That's where you could load registry changes. I'm not doing anything at the moment. We can go to unattended. Now, you can enable this and you can skip the out of box setup, which stops the, hello Windows, and do you wish to set up your username and stuff like that, and just takes you to through the absolute basics. I'm not going to do this in this one. Again, that's for a future update. I've also seen that go spectacularly wrong before, so I'll leave that for now. Post setup, I've never actually had to use, to be honest. So you can run commands or templates. So I suppose in theory you could run a command which would install your applications at this point. We'll leave that for now. Again, I'll investigate that in a future tutorial, and we'll click on the apply. For the apply, you've got the choice of saving images, save images and trim editions, and stop before saving image. Well, I'm going to save image and trim editions. That means that it will only be suitable for Windows 10 64-bit. Okay. If you come down here, it says remove non-essential additions. I usually agree with. I tend to prefer a smaller image more than anything else. You can do a standard image, a WIMP, which is editable. You can do a highly compressed ESD, which would have to be split, or a spanned image. Generally, I use it as standard. I've never tried an ESD. Again, maybe want to test in a future tutorial. This shows us everything that we've requested to actually do. Notice that some things that we didn't do or aren't ticked. Then it's going to try them, but we've not done anything. This will be because I was ticking down the sides to tell you things. And I do want to create the ISO, so it asks me where to save the ISO. As you can see, I done one in August, but we'll call this September. Or we can call it 2H20 sept. Okay, it asks me for a label, so I can do 2H20 sept as well. And click OK. And it will now create the ISO when it's finished, and it gives me a list of the pending tasks. So with that in mind, the easiest thing to do now would be to actually click the process button, actually start the image creating. Now, this pops up every time. I've not found a way to disable this so that it doesn't bug me every time, and I don't know how much slower it is with this running. I may have to actually uninstall Windows Security on a machine and test it, but for now, I'm okay with it being that little bit slower, so I'll just click close on that. And now we wait. As you can see now, it's flicking through each of the updates in tow and installing them. Okay, so it's popped up an error telling me that it couldn't install one of the updates. Again, sometimes that's expected. It's entirely possible this is already installed. Considering we're doing H220 and that's 1909, that seems like an intelligent thing to actually do. That seems like a good idea of what's actually went wrong, so just click OK. It's now integrating the drivers. This part doesn't usually take too long. Okay, it's now moved on and it started to save changes to the image. Now it's creating the log and setting all the presets in the source. And now it's creating the ISO. I should get a pop-up that it's done saying that it's finished. Which I've not, but it does say complete down in the bottom corner. So let's go to DVM's ISO's Windows 10 and see if it's there. And there we have it. The entire image is 6.5 gig. So to compare the difference, August's, which was only last month, compared to the September one, is 4.5 gig. So it's actually 2 gig bigger than the previous version of Windows. So there we go. We can now close out of this because we now have our Windows 10 image. But we've got to get it tested. So let's do that in the next video. Okay, you can enable it by right-clicking on your start bar, going to Apps and Features, select Programs and Features, select Turn Windows Features on or off. Now I already have it installed in this machine, but you would tick these two boxes here or this one up here. This will require a reboot when you do it. So once you've rebooted, you can come back up and your machine has come back up. Then you can click on here and you can type hyper you'll see the Hyper-V manager, so you click on that. As you can see, this is my desktop here, so this is where my VMs will actually appear. The first thing we have to do is create a Hyper-V switch, or edit the default one. So I'm going to click on New Virtual Switch. I'm going to create on External. I'm going to click on External. I'm going to click Create New Virtual Switch. It's actually selected my Ethernet card. For the sake of this, I'm actually going to set it to my Wi-Fi card because my VMs aren't actually going to be doing anything that's intensive enough to use my LAN card. Allow management operation of a shared network. Yep, sure enough. And then I'll give it a name, so we'll just call this Internet. Why not? That'll do. Click Apply. It might disrupt network activities, rather. So click the tick and then click Yes. Click OK. Okay. So in order to create a new machine, go over here, we click New, and we click Virtual Machine. Before you begin, this wizard helps you create a virtual machine. You can use virtual machines in place of physical computers for a variety of uses. You can use the wizard to configure the virtual machine now. You can change the configuration of your Hyper-V manager. To create a virtual machine, do one of the following things. Click Finish to create a virtual machine that's configured with default values. Click Next to create a virtual machine that's configured with custom values. So I'm actually going to click Next and walk through this. So the new virtual machine we'll call Win10 Test. We can enter that there. We're also going to store it in the same location as... In fact, no. We'll click here. We'll click Browse. Now, this will be different on your system, but I'm going to install it on my D drive, where I have a folder called VMs. So I'm going to store it in there, and I'm just going to call it Win10 Test. If I can type it correctly. And I'm going to click Next. Generation 1 or Generation 2. This virtual machine supports 32-bit and 64-bit operating systems and provides virtual hardware which has been available in all previous versions of Hyper-V, or Generation 2, which is UEFI-based firmware and requires support for 64-bit operating systems. So the most compatible is Generation 1, so we might as well use that. Click Next. It's want to give it 1 GB of RAM. That seems a tad tight, so 4096. We'll give it 4 GB. Again, depending on the virtual memory you have available in your system, make sure you have enough for this, otherwise not only will your virtual machine run dog slow, but your main machine will too. Click Next. The network connection, I'm going to try and use Internet. We'll see if that one works for us. Click Next. I'm going to create a virtual hard disk. I'm going to create it in the correct folder, and in the same folder as the machine, 127 gig. That's fine, there should be plenty of space on that. You can also use an existing one or attach a virtual hard disk later if you want, but click Next. Install operating system from a bootable CD. I'm going to select an ISO image and click Browse. Go to our D drive. Now this will be different for your system. Go to our VMs folder, ISOs, and this is the Windows 10 2H20 September ISO. This is one that I created in a previous tutorial. So select Open and then click Next. And it'll give us a summary, so check everything's correct in there. I'm sure it's fine. Click Finish and it'll create our virtual machine. As you can see, it's appeared up here. So I can right click it and go Connect to, or you can also go to Connect over here. As you can see, it's turned off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Start. And our virtual machine is now booting. That does not look correct on a 4K monitor. Okay, so it's asking me to choose my language. So English, United Kingdom. Yeah, that'll do. Click Next. Click Install Now. It's asking me for my product key, but I'm just going to click I don't have a product key and click Next. Well, in fact, you don't have to click Next if you click I don't have a product key. Millions of pages of information you're never going to read. I accept. Click Next. It gives me the option to upgrade or a custom install of Windows. So I'm going to do custom install. As you can see, it shows you my 127 gig hard drive we created when we created the machine. So we just click New. apply, OK. Gives us a system reserve partition, and it creates a next partition, partition 2, which is where our system will be installed. Click next. Okay, so it's asking us to select a region. So, well, I'm in the United Kingdom. Click yes. My keyboard's United Kingdom. I don't need to add a second keyboard layout, so I can click skip on that. Okay, so it's asking me to create a username. For the purposes of this, I'll just call it admin. And the password I'll create as password because I don't really care. It's off my network. And confirm my password. Security ID question 1 of 3. Yeah, that's my childhood nickname. First pet's name. This is all BS answers. Next. Okay, it's asking me if I want to use speech recognition, so no. Does it want me spying on my location, so no. Find my device, no, because it's a virtual machine. Send required diagnostics data, send required and optional diagnostics data. How about send no diagnostics data? So select required diagnostics data. I'll have a video on removing that later on. Ink and type. Improve inking and typing, I don't care, so no. A tailored experience with diagnostics data, no. This is just all the spyware stuff that it's letting you change, and this isn't even a fraction of it. So app and advertising ID, no, that means it can track you using your cookies and from site to site, etc. Let Cortana help you get things done. No, I'm not interested in Cortana. I'm just speeding through this because the point of this is just to test that it installs and all of my drivers are there. It doesn't actually, like the image actually boots, it doesn't really matter what I enter at this point. Okay, so that appears to be done. It's asking me to connect to resolution. That looks fine for now. I'm just going to click connect. So it's rebooted, asking me to log in. I'll log in with my password. Oh, it's asking me to select which network I'm on as it checks corrects my screen resolution. No, I don't need it to be discoverable on the network. It's not going to be on it for very long before I blow it away. Obviously, Microsoft's trying to get everybody to use Chrome or Microsoft Edge, which is Credge. So maybe later, not really, never got to use it. Can delete that from here. Okay, so that installed correctly. It's let me log in. Everything that I expected to be there appears to be there. Now, obviously, testing this on a virtual machine is not the same as testing it on a machine where you backed up all of your drivers from. But you should always test it on a virtual machine to ensure it actually boots first, because you don't want to delete your Windows partitions and then find out your disk isn't actually working and you can't do anything about it. So now we've done that, let's move on to our next tutorial where I'll show you how to download the apps that I had you set up earlier on. And there's two ways to do this. The way that I'm showing you just now is after the fact. So once you've actually installed and tested your image and you want to install your applications, what you have to do first is copy them onto the system. Now, the easiest way to do that, if it's a physical system, would be to copy the file that you created previously in our previous tutorial onto a USB drive, and then from the USB drive, take it out the machine that it was on, put it in the new machine you want to copy it to, and then install it from there. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm actually going to try and copy this through my network. So to do that, I'm going to check my machine's IP by opening a Windows PowerShell admin window. and I am going to do ipconfig. Okay, so 192.168.0.53, so I will then set up sharing on my local drive. So if I go in here and I go to my C drive, I go to right click and properties, I can set up sharing, advanced sharing, share this device. Yep, apply. Okay. Oh, actually go back in there, go to permissions, give me full control. Apply. Okay. Apply. Okay. Close. Now if I open up that location, get the IP address up again. Bring this window in here and do 192.168.0.53. It should ask me to log in. I'll log in with the account on the local system. That is the system I'm trying to connect to rather. And there's my C drive. Inside my C drive, I'll place it on the desktop. So it's actually in my downloads folder. That's it there. So I'll just copy that across. And then go back to 192.168.0.53 in my C drive. Go into users. Go into the admin account. Go to my desktop and I'll paste it in there. Close that down now, you can see it's appeared. I really wish I could change the screen resolution at this point. It's not letting me, so unfortunately this is a tiny little part of the screen you're staring at. So we can close down these windows, and now if I double click this, it should prepare the setup. User account control will kick in and ask me if I'm okay to make changes to devices, so I'll click yes. There's VLC, and finally we should have Discord. And there we go. You now click close and you can test your applications. So Audacity. That worked fine. Notepad++. That worked fine. Opera. That's fine. VLC. That's fine. And finally Discord. Okay, so Discord's a few more updates. That's not unusual for an application of this type. And there we go. Discord appears to be working. Let's try to detect an account, but I don't have an account here. So it's asking me to log in or to use the QR code. That's fine. Just close that down just now. Now, one thing that I didn't show you there was obviously 7-zip, but there it's there. And the 7-zip file manager. And there we go. So all those applications have installed successfully, and you pretty much just had to copy it across and double click. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you disliked this video, give it a dislike too. If you get feedback on this or any other videos or suggestions for videos you believe we should do in the future, then please let us know in the comments below. And most of all, thank you for watching.